Hello friends and welcome to another video. Now in this video, I'm going to be working to dispel the top 10 myths that I hear about MEDDICC on pretty much a weekly basis. Let's get into it. MEDDICC myth number 1. MEDDICC is a sales process. Wrong. MEDDICC is not a sales process. MEDDICC is a qualification framework or methodology. A sales process is something that is a series of steps that takes your deal from your first engagement with the customer through to the closed sale, and all of the steps and stages that you have in between that process. Qualification framework tells you, first and foremost, should you be in the deal, and if you are in the deal, what things should you be doing in the deal to stay on top of it, to stay qualified, that you should be within it. Now you may be thinking, well, that sounds quite similar, and why does it matter? Well, it matters like this, because when people start to think about a sales process and they think they can only have one, which is kind of correct. You can't have two sales processes. However, MEDDICC works with all sales processes. It complements sales processes. The same with sales methodologies. MEDDICC complements them, and it actually makes them better. How you talk to your customers, the process you follow to engage with your customers, that is what MEDDICC suits to qualify. Now there's all kinds of misconceptions that come when you get this wrong, and it could be thinking that, well, we can't use MEDDICC because we already have a sales process. We can't use MEDDICC because we already have a sales methodology. MEDDICC is not good for how customers like to talk to us. So that's why it's really important you don't get that bit wrong. And that first myth brings me neatly onto MEDDICC myth number 2, which is that customers dislike being sold to with MEDDICC. This is a weird one for me, because there's no reason why a customer should know that you're selling to them with MEDDICC. I guess the only reason it could happen is if you're kind of leaning into MEDDICC too much. And let's just think about what would happen if that was to be the case. First and foremost, you'll be focused really on the pain and the metrics. So you'd be looking to really quantify any pain you found with metrics, which for me, I think if I'm a customer, that's a good thing. Secondly, you're going to be focused very much around the criteria in which the customer's making the decision and the process in which they're going to be making that decision, which again, for a very interested customer, is a good thing. You're going to be focusing on making progress. And then third, the stakeholders. Now, if you've got a properly engaged customer who's serious about buying your solution, then they're going to want your help to engage stakeholders who are part of that decision process. So, for me, the only customer that would be unhappy with somebody using MEDDICC would be a customer that isn't really qualified, and probably one that you need to qualify out of. And therefore, MEDDICC's done its job. MEDDICC myth number 3. MEDDICC is just for forecasting. No, wrong. You're using it wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's the best thing out there to help you accurately forecast, but it's the work that it helps you to do as a salesperson leading up to making that forecast where MEDDICC really proves its value. It's going to help you figure out, first and foremost, should you be in this deal or not. Obviously, if you're not in the deal, then you're never going to forecast it. But more importantly, if you are in the deal, it's going to help you to figure out what are the things you're going to need to do to get yourself in a position where you can accurately forecast a deal. And that's just an outcome of good selling. Being able to accurately forecast is a symptom of good selling. You can only accurately forecast if you're doing a good job at selling. And if MEDDICC is going to help you to do a good job of selling, and as I say, a byproduct of that is you're able to accurately forecast, then you'll always be a very successful salesperson, because you've obviously got the skill, but being able to accurately forecast will mean that the sales leaders who are working at the hottest opportunities will want you to come and work for them. So much more than just forecasting. MEDDICC myth number 4. If we use MEDDICC, then we'll qualify out of too many opportunities. Yeah, that's a thing, right? If you qualify opportunities and they're not qualified, you should qualify out. That's how it works. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. It means that your sales team are not pursuing unqualified opportunities. It means it frees up their time to focus on qualified opportunities, And with the time they have left over, they can put back into pipeline generation. So it's a very good thing. Now, I'm not going to just dismiss that objection, you can tell I'm a sales guy, right? I'm going to dismiss that myth just like that, because I know that's very easy to do. Let's dig in a little bit more to what the problem is here. This sales leader thought that they had a small total addressable market TAM, and that they shouldn't dismiss any opportunities at the earliest opportunity because they need nurturing, which is cool, right? We don't all, some people are creating categories with new products and that kind of thing. It doesn't remove the fact that to have an opportunity, you have to have a champion, or at least have a pathway to a champion. It doesn't remove the fact that the customer has to have a pain that you need to solve, and you have to be able to quantify those pains with metrics. So all of those things, regardless of how small and how new your product, how small your market is and how new your product is, still exist. And so dismissing those just because you want to kind of build this faux pipeline is a very bad thing to do. So yeah, it's not gonna somehow ruin your sales pipeline by qualifying better. It's only gonna make it better. MEDDICC myth number 5. You don't need any more letters than the original 6 letters of MEDDICC. MEDDIC. I mean, I don't hear this one so much anymore, thankfully, but there are still a few people out there that think that the evolution of MEDDICC to include an additional C for competition and the P for paper process is unnecessary. They think that those letters can be rolled into the former letters, and I actually did a whole video about this, so I'm not going to go too much into depth about it, but what I will say is this. Every single day in our industry, over 100 new SaaS companies start. 100 new SaaS companies, potentially 100 competitors to you, right? And the reason why they can do that is because technology is, of course, eating the world, software is eating the world, and there's more ways to solve. It's also easier to start a software company today. So whether it is a direct rival of yours, or whether it is another initiative that's taking the same budget that you're trying to align your project to, or another form of competition could be the organization you're selling to decides to somehow build the solution themselves, the competition landscape is far broader than before. So it's worth, in my view, calling it out as something to very much focus on the qualification of. So that's why you should consider, but if you don't want to, you don't have to, but you should consider adding an additional C to your MEDDICC. And then when it comes to P for paper processes, how it's most commonly used, think about it. MEDDICC was created 25 years ago. You bought software on premise, you owned the licenses, they're perpetual licenses. There was no SLAs around cloud agreements, there was no data privacy laws like there are today, there was no, all of these things, all of that those different layers of complexity that go into the paper process didn't exist back then. So it makes sense, in my view, to stop deal slipping to call out the paper process. But if you want to put it inside of the decision process, if that works for you, then all power to you. The last thing I'll say with you on this point was the point I always make. The guy that invented MEDDICC is Dick Dunkel. He currently leads sales enablement at a really cool company, big up and coming company. But for them, the P in MEDDICC stands for partners, not for paper process. So if he can see it fit to change it, then you can as well. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. MEDDICC myth number 6. MEDDICC is just for sales teams. Wrong. MEDDICC is best when it's used as a common language across the entire revenue organization, and in some cases even further than that if you think about how you involve the executives in the sales process. So what I mean by that is if you think about the common language of how you discuss your revenue, how you discuss your engagement with customers and potential customers, having the same definitions and the same view of things is a very, very good thing. It's very, very useful. I've actually done a video about this, which I'll link somewhere. But the idea is this: if you think about your go-to-market, who you're talking to and what you're saying to them, MEDDICC helps play a role in that, obviously all the way through the sales cycle, and then post-sale, what better handover than a MEDDICC handover to customer success? It's going to tell you why they bought, what problems you're solving, what value they're expecting, who was involved in the decision process, how did they make a decision, and why did you win, most importantly overall, and how can you really delight and hit the ground running from there. So yeah, MEDDICC is much, much more than just a framework for the sales team. MEDDICC myth number 7. Yeah, MEDDICC just won't work for us because we're different, or our product's different, or our industry's different, or whatever. Not quite true. In fact, not true at all, because whether it's public sector, private sector, whatever the industry is, whatever the technology is you're selling, MEDDICC can play a very, very valuable part to help you understand should you be in the deal and what should you be doing in that deal to win. The only exception to this is if you're selling a commodity. But even then, I would say that it's going to help you to distinguish yourself against the other people selling the same commodity, because you won't all be identical. Otherwise, the only differentiator will be price. And then, you don't really need salespeople then. It's just like, send over your best price. MEDDICC myth number 8. MEDDICC has to be implemented. This is a funny one, this one, because there is no gold standard with MEDDICC. There are organizations that implement MEDDICC very, very well. They make it part of their sales process. They include it as part of the steps in the CRM. They include it in their value messaging, their go-to-market, the way they talk to their customers, everything. MEDDICC becomes their common language when they talk about any engagement with a customer or potential customer, which is great. But what it doesn't mean is that to use MEDDICC, you have to go to that level of implementation. In fact, as you'll see in a later myth, MEDDICC works very, very well, and first and foremost should be used just as an individual contributor to help you qualify where you are in your deals. So no, MEDDICC does not have to be implemented to be used. MEDDICC myth number 9. MEDDICC is bad for sales culture. Now, this is one that I don't want to just dispel as a myth, because I think that this is something that's very, very important. It's definitely something that's very dear to my heart, is sales culture. I genuinely believe you cannot have an elite sales organization unless you get the culture right. I think it's a really, really fundamental part of having an elite sales team. To get the most out of a sales organization, you have to have good culture. And what I often see happen is that MEDDICC becomes an extension of a bad sales culture. And let's be honest here, bad sales culture is generally driven, or at least tolerated, by sales leadership. So the buck kind of, for me, the sales culture, not the overall company culture, but for the sales culture, it lies with the sales leadership. And if you have bad sales leadership and you give them MEDDICC, it's just going to be another tool they can use that enables them to be bad sales leaders. The analogy I like to use here is to think about MEDDICC the same way as you think about the laws of the land. If you have a society that has laws, it's a much better society than one that doesn't have laws. But if you live under an evil dictator, then they will use those laws to be against their people. And unfortunately, MEDDICC can kind of fall into that kind of situation. But if you have good sales leaders whose goals are to make you successful, and by proxy they're going to be successful, then MEDDICC just becomes another tool in your arsenal to help towards making you successful. Not to micromanage you, not to kind of pull faults with what you're doing, none of that stuff. That is not what MEDDICC is about. MEDDICC myth number 10 is MEDDICC is just for sales leadership. Now, as we discussed in MEDDICC myth number 8, I think it was, around MEDDICC having to be implemented, where I said actually there's the real value of MEDDICC, the number one value for me of MEDDICC comes from just being an individual contributor, just using yourself to qualify what you need to be doing in deals to be able to put yourself in pole position to win. That, for me, is the number one value of MEDDICC. So let's just for a second, imagine you work for a company that has no targets, no forecast, but you're still a driven salesperson. You're still trying to earn commission, you're still trying to make sales. Put yourself in that scenario. You still need to understand what is the pain that you're solving. You still need to quantify that pain. That's the I and the M of MEDDICC, or MEDDICC. You need to understand the stakeholders in the buying decision, not just the overall authority and champions and coaches and all that sort of stuff, but also who are your competition. That's a big part of MEDDICC as well. And then you really have to understand the actual process in which they're going to go through to make that decision. You need to understand what is the criteria they're making that decision on. This is all fundamental things around MEDDICC that regardless of sales leadership, regardless of forecasting, regardless of any of that stuff, that to be able to sell well in modern enterprise sales and complex sales, you still need to have those things. So MEDDICC, yes, is great for sales leaders to help their sales teams to make sure they're qualifying and thinking about all the different things that can provoke ourselves into moving deals forward, but even without sales leaders, it's a great framework for you to use. So there you have it, the 10 most common myths of MEDDICC dispelled, gone, never to be heard from ever again, and if you ever do hear them, you know to send them this video. That's it, my friends. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you thought we've missed any myths out that we should have talked about, please put them in the comments below. Until the next time, may your champions be strong. See ya.